Welcome back to Crime Scene, or if you're new here, hello. In the last video, we looked at some ways that the killer could have gained entry into Nanette Ellis's house. The comments on that video were fantastic, and I wanted to include them here in a little update type thing so that we can wrap up this question and move on to the next one. Now, the options that I came up with were 1, the killer came in while Nanette was unloading the car, like the police said. Option 2, the killer broke into the house sometime during the day, managed to hide from the kids, and waited until Nanette got home. Option 3, the killer broke in after the time Craig had left, but before Nanette got home and waited for her to get home. Option 4, the killer knocked on the door and pushed Nanette inside when she answered. Option 5, the killer knocked on the door and was let inside by Nanette. Or option 6, the killer lived in the house. I ruled out 1 and 2. I thought 3 could be a maybe. It's not entirely impossible, but I thought 4, 5, and 6 were the most likely. MW12349 said a resounding number 6, the killer lived in the house, and user LH6CT4WU6Q said 5 or 6. So I think we're all on the same page here. But MW12349 made a really good point about the radio being on loudly. I'm only going to discuss options 4, 5, and 6 here, but it also comes down to whether Nanette turned that radio on or if the killer did it to drown out her screams. I feel like a lot of this case is, oh, this happened, so that probably happened, but this could also have happened, so then that couldn't have happened. But we don't know which way it happened, so we don't know what happened after that. And the radio is just another one of those things that happened, which could have happened 2 ways, which would have caused 2 different things to happen, and maybe even more than 2. If Nanette turned the radio on, and is it likely that Nanette turned the radio on? Let's just ponder that for a second. The police think she was murdered quite soon after coming home. If the killer did get in through the front door while she was unloading the car, when would she have been able to turn the radio on? But if she was there for longer than the police think, then maybe she would have put it on while she was getting ready to go out. So we just don't know. The police think she was killed straight away because she didn't answer calls from her friends, which started around 5:15 p.m. as she was getting home. But she might have put the radio on and not heard the phone. So if she did put the radio on loudly, would she have heard someone knocking on the door? We also have to think about the fact that would she have put a loud radio on while she was in fear? I know that I wouldn't have been putting the radio on that day. I'm a little bit deaf in one ear too, and I listen to music quite loudly, and I never hear the door when I have music on, either when people knock or use the doorbell. But would she have put music on if there were other people in the house who she felt comfortable and safe with, as MW12349 pointed out? Okay, so let's go through the options with the assumption that Nanette turned the radio on herself. So option 4, the killer knocked on the door and pushed Nanette inside. She might not have heard anyone knocking. This goes for option 5, but not option 6. If she did hear the door, then option 4 is still in play. But what about option 5? Would she have answered the door and let someone in with the music still blaring? I find it hard to believe she would be having a conversation with someone with loud music playing. So let's look at those options with the assumption that Nanette turned the radio on as soon as she got home. Option 4, it's doubtful that she would have heard the door. Option 5, it's doubtful that she would have kept the radio on while she was talking to a visitor. These are my opinions, by the way, definitely not facts, and feel free to argue my opinions in the comments. Option 6, yes, if someone who lived in the house was there, it wouldn't have mattered if she put the radio on, and she probably wouldn't have turned it off if they came in or if she was having a conversation with them. So Nanette turning on the radio as soon as she got home or very soon after arriving home is not looking good for the other people who lived in the house, in my opinion. But what if she turned it on a little bit later? Let's see. Option 4. Well, that wouldn't have worked at all. If she hadn't turned on the radio and she heard the door and answered it, the killer would have been ordering her in the bedroom and attacking her straight away. She wouldn't have had the opportunity to turn the radio on. Option 5, same. If she was talking to a visitor who had come over, why would she go and turn the radio on? Option 6, same as turning the radio on straight away. It wouldn't have mattered. This radio thing is not looking good for the people who lived in the house. I think because the police have always assumed that the killer gained entry through the open front door while she was bringing items in from the car, I think we can safely assume that there were no signs of a break-in. I have to assume that if there were signs of a break-in, then obviously the police would have thought that was the way they got in. So I don't think there were any signs of a break-in. That's why I'm not even entertaining the idea of options 1 and 2, and option 3 is looking even less likely to me now. But what about if the killer put the radio on? It makes sense, right? Drown out the screams of a woman being stabbed to death in a suburban neighbourhood as everyone was getting home for the day? Yeah, it makes sense. But when? When would he have turned it on? Before she got home? Well, that might have tipped her off that someone was in the house. And then there's the no break-in thing. After she came home and was putting stuff away? Once again, massive tip-off that someone was in the house. He didn't stop the stabbing, run to the radio and then continue. There would have been blood in her room either from him or the knife. This makes me think Nanette was the one who turned the radio on. But I do hope that police dusted for fingerprints anyway. So if she did turn it on, which I think is the most likely option, for the reasons I've already given, I would have to say option 4 or 6 are looking like the likely options. Option 4, if she did hear the door, and option 6 for obvious reasons. But maybe option 5 because she might have had the radio on, heard the door, answered it, invited the person in, and then the person might have attacked her as she went to her room to turn the radio off. So to me, 4, 5, and 6 are still options. Okay, so what's the conclusion? Nothing, as usual. There are still too many variables. It's like one of those old choose-your-own-adventure books. Does anyone remember those? They were cool. Maybe that's what we should do. I'll do some videos where we go each way and see what pans out. But I'll do these answering the questions ones first. Although, how do we answer this one? Once again, no definitive answer, just speculation. What do you think? Have you changed your minds after all this radio talk, or are you sticking with your original thoughts? Let me know in the comments.